So test it again.
Hello? Yeah, it's echoing.
So what's gonna happen, I think, is test it now.
Hello? Still not going.
Try again now.
Hello? Hello? A little bit.
So it's not echoing. You know what's happening? There is now test it.
Hello?
So what's happening is
Oh, it's from the hall.
the speaker's now in the hall. So the hall has direct live, and the TV has like a
So
1
they're
second
kind
delay.
of-
Yeah. So if we wanted to, if we turn off the hall system, now
Then
try
it would
it.
be- Hello? Oh, yes.
Only from the hall.
Yeah.
Hall. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Otherwise,
see.
it's no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got
So,
it.
but the thing is, when the doors are closed, the echo doesn't bother
It
people.
doesn't,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Okay.
we can leave this on for people outside. We can close.
Inshallah.
Good?
Yeah. Alright, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. Hope everyone's doing well. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you for being patient with us. A very busy day at IIOC today. But today we're very honored. As you guys know, we have Shaykh Mustafa Umar here. He's our Director of Education and Outreach. No stranger to us, but we're going to have our question and answer session. Typically, we do this on Fridays. But at times we like to do it on Sunday too, because those that can't make it on Fridays, we like to make sure that we can address those questions on Sunday as well. Being that Ramadan is right around the corner, I do have some announcements at the end, but if you have questions regarding Ramadan as well, we're going to have a workshop, but you can also ask those questions right now if you like, and Sheikh Mustafa, I'm sure, is more than happy to address those. So we'll go to about 3-ish, you said? 4 o'clock or something? No, I'm just kidding. 3, I'm just joking. So fire away, inshallah. Sheikh Mustafa.
All right, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. Maybe we can bring the volume down a little bit, Crystal, just the main volume. That's a little bit more. That's good. Yeah, that's good. Alhamdulillah. All right. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. So, alhamdulillah, it's a pleasure being with all of you again. Alhamdulillah, this is probably one of my favorite groups. One of my favorite groups I love talking to. The favorite group, absolutely. Somehow this distance got created between us. But that's okay. Alhamdulillah. We're together, we're close. Alhamdulillah. The hearts are there. So, alhamdulillah, what we usually do in these question sessions is, it's open questions. You can ask whatever you want. And this is what ends up happening. A lot of people accept Islam. They've been Muslim for a month or a year or 5 years, and you hear different things from different sources about what Islam supposedly is. How many of you get emails about Islam on a regular basis, or at least once every 2 months? You get emails. Someone forwards you an email or sends you an email. How many of you go and check like Facebook and websites for your Islamic knowledge? Okay. So the thing is this. Anyone can write an email, and anyone can write a Facebook post, and anyone nowadays can make a website. And any friend of yours who's Muslim can just tell you what they think about Islam. And sometimes they're right, and sometimes they can be wrong. Let's assume that they're 80% right. Let's be nice and say that they're 90% right, okay? That 10% will actually, the 10% where they're wrong, or they're teaching you something about what Islam is, can be very detrimental, right? A lot of you came from Christianity as a background, right? Those who came from Christianity know that 80%, 90% of Christianity is fine. It's the believing that Jesus is God, and it's some modifications and corruption in the Bible, and some other maybe Catholic practices, or going to the Pope and the Father to confess your sins. It's that small section that's a problem, but it's a very big problem. So sometimes those mistakes or those misinformation that you can get even from Muslims about what Islam is, sometimes they're small mistakes, sometimes they're medium mistakes, and sometimes they can be very serious misinformations that's being given. So that's why it's very important to ask, if you ever hear something where you're wondering, is that what really Islam teaches? Something seems a little bit strange about that. It's always best to verify and make sure that, where did this source come from? Where did I hear it? Because you don't want to have mistakes about Islam. So that's your opportunity now, inshallah, to ask those questions. Ramadan is coming up. There are a lot of questions people have about Ramadan. There's a lot of maybe misunderstandings that people have about Ramadan. So you can get those clarified as well. And lastly, what ends up happening usually in a session is that the first 5 minutes, it's very difficult for people to ask questions. And then when someone starts asking a question, we start talking about something, oh, I just thought of something now based upon what you were saying, and then the questions just start going, okay? So who's going to help us warm up, inshallah, warm up the audience? Crystal? I meant behind you, she was raising her hand, because I know she has to leave, so that's why. Go ahead, start us up.
So I know that we recently had biryani night.
Yes.
I don't know what biryani is.
That's very good. I'm glad you asked that question, right? So biryani is a type of dish, it's a type of food dish that is prepared with rice. It's usually got meat in there, sometimes vegetables. It's got a lot of spices in there and some other spices and stuff. So it's like one of the most popular Indian subcontinent dishes available. So that's why, you know, a lot of people have heard of biryani. It's kind of like chicken tikka and like these type of things. They're like very popular foods, right? So that's why, that's why they didn't define biryani in that. But it's a good question. Yeah. So there's a lot of foods people like assume everyone knows, but not everyone knows it. Like people used to tell me, you know, you like hummus? I didn't know what hummus was until about 10 years ago. Like I've never heard of hummus before. Like, you don't know hummus? I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I don't know hummus. You know, so alhamdulillah. All right, Amanda, go ahead.
So my question is regarding fasting. So this is going to be my first Ramadan. So when I'm fasting, for example, like if I need to eat something, if my sugar drops, I know that you're supposed to then like pay for some. Oh, I'm not really sure how it works.
Are you diabetic?
No, but
Oh.
I do get like low blood sugar.
Okay.
In order to avoid that.
Right.
But I'm worried more about like when I'm at work, 'cause I work 12-hour shifts. And so, what do you, is that day just done? Do you keep eating that day, or do you start the next day?
So here's what you do. Basically, anytime you have a valid excuse for breaking your fast, so you start fasting that day, and then you start feeling really exhausted, or you start feeling bad to the point where this is going to harm your body, right? Then what you do is you break your fast with whatever, and your fast is done. You continue eating, drinking, and now you have to make up that fast after Ramadan is over. That's it. You don't have to feed anyone else. You don't have to do anything else.
The next day you start again?
The next day you start again, and because that's the next day of fasting. But then when Ramadan's over, because you broke one fast, you're going to make that fast up. And if you miss 3 fasts in Ramadan, you're going to make those fasts up afterwards, right? And so that's when you have a temporary excuse.
And we also make up the days like if we're on
Yeah,
the cycle.
and the cycle and everything, same thing. So you make up those days as well. So the general rule is this: if you're in an acute situation versus chronic meaning like long term, you're not going to be healed from this, right? Versus this is a temporary situation, like your menstruation, or you had the flu, or you had illness, or something like that. You know your illness is going to be gone, so it's temporary. So whenever you have something that's temporary, you can break your fast if it's going to harm you, and then you make up the fast later. The only time you're going to feed other people is when you have a chronic situation where you're not going to be able to make up the fast, you're not going to be able to fast. So you're someone generally who does not fast in Ramadan. So if you are very, very old and it's too difficult for you to fast, or you have diabetes and it's too dangerous for you to fast, or you have any other condition where it's going to be permanent, it's chronic long term, then what you do is in Ramadan, every day you miss, you're feeding one poor person to make up for it. Because you're not going to be able to make up your fast ever because you're in a chronic situation. So those are the people who feed. And if you're not in that case and you're going to be able to fast later on to make it up, you don't have to feed anyone. I mean, you can voluntarily. It's good to feed people anyways, but you don't have to feed, right? Okay. Follow-up question, yeah.
And when you're feeding people, it would be 10 people, and it would be the average of what you eat.
No, it's one person. One person for every single day that you miss. So the feeding 10 people is on another Islamic rule. It's a different rule. But this one is specifically, for one day you miss, you feed one poor person, and you feed them a day's worth of food. All right? A day's worth of food, which is basically what you would normally eat, like middle class, what is considered middle class food. So don't buy them 99-cent McDonald's, right? And you don't buy them like the $15 Cheesecake Factory, dish or something like that, something in the middle. I like to use Chipotle as an example, something like that too. I don't know. There's other restaurants, I'm sure. So something around that, or you can cook the food and actually give it to them, something nice that you'd eat. Yeah, Heidi.
It's along the same lines
Mhm.
about the cycle. For me, it's like kind of like difficult to stop and then start over again. And then sometimes one day I hear a sister saying that she took something to prevent the
Mm.
from coming,
All right.
so they can fast. Like,
Yeah.
is that allowed?
Okay, so there's two questions. Is it allowed? And is it recommended. Okay, it is allowed. Okay, if your cycle doesn't come, then you continue fasting. Is it recommended? So the thing is, doctors have different opinions, but the thing is, when you're putting chemicals in your body, that's going to affect you, and it's going to have a health effect on you. So I would say it's probably not recommended, right? So the difficulty involved in stopping and then starting is much less than maybe the health effects that are going to come because you skipped. The only case where you'd want to do that is, let's say you're going for Hajj, or you're going for Umrah, or you're going to Mecca, and you really didn't want this to interfere with, you being able to go to the masjid and all of that stuff, and this is like once in a while you're gonna go, and your trip was planned like exactly at that time, and it's like such a short trip, and you're like, I don't want to miss that. In that case, it's understandable, that's just something small. But for Ramadan, I know it's still once a year, but it can have effects on you. So I mean, if it's proven to be very, very safe, it would be okay. But what I've heard is, extra chemicals in your body generally are not good for you, So alhamdulillah. So there was another sister. Let's get the other sister question. Yeah.
I brought someone that's new.
Oh, welcome.
She works in an environment where everybody shakes and hugs and stuff, and they don't really know that she just converted. So her question is, since it's going to be her first Ramadan, would it break her fast? This is her question. If somebody hugged her from the opposite.
So if somebody else came and hugged her, it would not break her fast, right? And she can slowly, kind of get people accustomed to, have a little bit different lifestyle. We don't hug now in Islam, explained. But no, hugging does not break your fast. Shaking hands does not break your fast. Changing diapers does not break your fast. I get all these kind of questions. So none of this stuff breaks your fast, right? The only thing that really breaks your fast is eating, drinking, intimacy, and beyond, right? In that category, and that's it. Pretty much, this is what breaks your fast. Yeah, so menses technically doesn't break your fast; it prevents you from fasting. So it's a little bit different terminology, but yeah, you can say it prevents you from fasting. Any other follow-up question on that? We're good? Okay, go ahead.
I know I talked to Shaykh Bakir, you about this before. I think it was Shaykh Mani, yeah. Now what if you were practicing for a long time and you were getting, maybe you didn't have everything right, you had some misconceptions through the emails and the Facebook, but basic things you were getting right, like fasting and praying on time, mostly, and coming to Juma, and showering before Juma, and clipping your nails, all these things. But what if you were to the point where you know you're supposed to fast and pray, but there's something you don't have the devotion, the level of devotion. What should you do? Should you approach Ramadan with the goal of trying to fast all 30 days and try your best?
Yep, try your best.
So have a goal for 30 days and just see if you can actually do it. Right?
Yeah, just do it. Don't see if you can do it. A wise man once said, it was Yoda from Star Wars. He said, he said, there is no try. You just do. Do or do not. There is no try. It's Yoda. Follow that. Inshallah. Yes.
Can I ask a question not related to Ramadan?
Yeah, sure. Any question?
People usually ask me some questions, and one of the first thing they say to me is did you marry a Muslim, and that's why you converted? Then when I tell them I cannot marry a Christian, and all these questions come out. One of the questions is if a man wants to marry a Christian woman, I suppose that they have to marry under Islamic law. Isn't that right?
They ask you that question? They ask you that question? So what do they mean by marry under Islamic law? Oh, the Christian woman has to marry under Islamic law?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So yeah, there's Islamic contract, yeah. Yeah, so there's a...
Has to agree to, otherwise they cannot get married, right?
Yeah, it's almost the same thing. So, I mean, the marriage in Islam is very similar to the marriage by the state. They require 2 witnesses. Islam requires 2 witnesses. You need to have an agreement between you two. You have an agreement between you two. It's almost the same thing. So so the thing, my concern is, why are they asking that? Like, what is their motive behind asking that?
Because I believe it's because if one is Catholic and the other one is Muslim,
Mm.
are they going to marry under both faiths?
I see. So no, they're not going to marry under both faiths. So no, no, it's gonna be under Islam. And the thing is, the reality is, normally the Catholic Church did not allow marriage outside of Catholics, right? So they would not perform the marriage normally, but they've changed. Right? So they've changed a lot of their stances over time, right? So if people are like, well, that's not fair, why does it have to be this way? Say, well, that's the way Catholicism was too. They would not perform the marriage if it was to a Muslim. They would not perform it, right? The difference is they changed their religion more recently, and we have not changed. Like riba, interest, was not allowed under the Catholic Church for all of these years, hundreds of years, until recently, and then they changed the rule. And they say, oh, no, interest is allowed, as long as it's not over a certain rate. I mean, the Catholic Church kicked out the Jews from many European countries because they were charging interest to other people, and they said this is banned, so they kicked them out. So if someone comes back and responds to you and says, oh, well, that's this, that's that, just try not to talk so much about the legal part of it. Right? Talk about, well, the thing is that if the woman is choosing to marry a Muslim man, and the Muslim in the Catholic Church as well as in Islam, the man is considered to be the head of the household. So what's going to happen is they have to agree to abide by certain principles in Islam, but Islam also gives the rights to Christians who are married, and they get to practice their own religion.
The guy cannot go to a Christian church and get married there.
He's not supposed to, no. No, he's not. It's not. So what some people will do is they'll do the Islamic marriage, and then they'll go and they'll do the Catholic ceremony of marriage as well. That, it's valid, but it's valid because the Islamic marriage happened already, but it's not something that should be done, right? But what can be done is you go and you do the Islamic marriage, and then you go and you do a ceremony, like a celebration among the Catholics, even if the celebration is at the church. It's perfectly fine. But the things that they say during the marriage, that should not be done. Right? So you can even do two parties if there's big family involved, right? Do one party in the masjid, do one party in the church, no problem. But the actual contract part should be done according to Islam, and not according to, in the name of Jesus and all of that stuff. Okay. Yes.
Why is it that the Muslim woman is not going to marry the Christian man? Why is that?
The reason is, so here's the thing. First of all, Muslim scholars said it's only allowed for Muslim men to marry Christian or Jewish women when Islam is the dominant and powerful religion in a community. So a lot of people don't know this, right? So it's actually very, very frowned upon. It's very disliked. It's a high level of makruh. Some scholars say it's haram. It's not even allowed for Muslim men to marry non-Muslim women in a society where Islam is not the dominant religion, right? Because of the danger to what's going to happen with the kids, the influence that she's going to have over them, and all of that stuff, right? But if Islam is the dominant culture, automatically children are going to be okay, the general morals are going to be okay, so there's not a danger there. So that's just one thing I want to point out. A lot of people don't know that. Second thing is, the reason is because the man is the head of the household. If it was the opposite way, in Christianity, the man is considered the same thing, right? So what's going to happen is Islam guarantees the rights of Christian women to practice their religion, and he cannot stop her from doing so because he married her. But Christianity does not have any teaching intrinsically in the book that says we will guarantee the rights of Muslims if you marry them. So what is going to guarantee her rights? There's no religious ruling there, right? So there's a high level of danger that she could potentially not be allowed to practice her religion, and then she's stuck there, right? So that's why, because the level of danger is so high, that's why it was prohibited. And it was, even for the men, it was only allowed in circumstances where Islam is going to be the dominant religion in the community. So it's because of the danger. Okay. So you can tell all the brothers you know that now you know something that they should have thought about before. So, alhamdulillah. What else?
How about for like the
Guy converts to Islam, and then he marries a Muslim woman. That happens a lot, yeah. Yeah, it happens a lot.
Kind of a situation right now where I met one of my closest friends from college,
Mm.
and I'm particularly while I'm on this path now, and trying to do the right thing.
Mm.
And it's always conflicting, I guess, with my family culture because my parents are Chinese, and so Chinese has their cultural differences.
Mm-hmm.
Like certain things, like for the wedding per se, it's like this. So if I heard you correctly, perform, I guess, the marriage at a mosque, and then after that you can kind of do like the cultural celebrations.
The culture, as long as there's no religious involved, you can do the cultural celebrations. Yeah, absolutely. You can light the fireworks or whatever it is that needs to be done. Yeah, yeah. But keep in mind, there's like 80 million Muslims in China, on the west side, right? So not on the east. So I mean, maybe getting in touch with a little bit more of that culture might show you a balance between some of the traditions between the east and the west parts of China. So that might be an option to look into, inshallah.
If you know anyone, maybe I can get their contact.
Inshallah. So we'll look out for you. Inshallah. You should get in touch with Adam Wang from Irvine. Yeah, so get him in touch with Adam. Adam will be a great person to talk to. Yeah. The Wang family is well known, a Chinese Muslim family in this community, and they can help you. Oh, he teaches at Sister Badia's thing? Oh, that's great. Yeah, alhamdulillah. Okay. Yes. Yes, yes.
Read something on the internet which says that after Maghrib, there's an hour where only men are supposed to do prayer, or oh, she said, I'm so sorry, it was in Maghrib. After Aisha, that only an hour after that, only the men are supposed to do prayer.
In Ramadan? So there's a prayer in Ramadan after Isha. It's called the Taraweeh prayer, and it's a long prayer. Usually lasts about an hour or more. So that prayer is considered to be recommended. It's not a requirement, but it's a recommended prayer, right? And it's a recommended prayer that happens inside the masjid. You can pray at home as well, but it's recommended to be prayed in the masjid. So the recommendation for praying in the masjid, just like Friday prayer, Jummah prayer, it's higher for the men than it is for the women. So it's not that women cannot attend. Women should attend if they can. But the recommendation is higher for the men. But even if the men cannot make it, they don't have to attend the Taraweeh prayer. See? Okay.
Okay, I have a question. Say for instance you have a debt and
You have a debt, yes.
it's full loan, say, but you're trying to get do the deed. Would your deed be accepted or not because you have this debt that you need to fulfill?
No. So there's different types of debts, right? There's debts that are owed now, and then there's debts where the deadline comes and you cannot pay it because you just don't have the money and you're trying your best, right? So the thing is, if you have a debt, the deadline is not now, you don't have to worry about it. If you have a debt and the deadline has come and you're not able to pay it back, okay, you make that a priority in your life that you're going to pay it back, okay? But if you have the money and the deadline has come and you're not paying that person, okay, and you die in that state and you don't pay the person the money back, you're going to be held accountable big time. So what happened was the Prophet, peace be upon him, he said something to the effect that your deeds will be invalidated if you neglect the debts that are due to you, are that you owe. And that's the context of probably what you heard. So it doesn't mean that if you have a debt, your good deeds don't count anymore. That's not what it means. It means if you're neglecting your debt and you have the money and you're able to pay it and it's not important for you, then you need to make this a priority in your life. Because what's the point of doing all the other good deeds when you're committing such a big sin like this? That's what he meant. Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, for those who commit suicide, how big is that sin? I mean, are those some people that I know they're mentally ill, but those are just decide just to quit?
Yep. So, those who commit suicide is considered to be one of the big major sins. It's a major, major sin. So, it's completely prohibited in Islam, and people will be held accountable for that. So it's a really, really big sin. Now, there's the idea of mental illness. Mental illness is how we look at things, right? In terms of this person had the ability, didn't have the ability or something. At the end of the day, Allah is going to judge everyone, right? And He knows the line between who had the ability to make the decision themselves rationally and who didn't. Those who didn't, they're not going to be held accountable. Those who did, and they chose this themselves, and they had the ability, but they chose this, then they're going to be held accountable for that. So we leave that part up to Allah. So we know what we're not supposed to do, and we know that if we should encourage people not to do it. If someone seems to have like very strong signs of mental illness, then this happens. We can probably say that, may Allah, overlook this person. May Allah forgive them. And He knows the real situation. This person may have had such a severe case of illness that they didn't have control over themselves. That's how we view them, and then we let Allah judge on the Day of Judgment. Okay.
I've heard a lot about the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom in Islam,
Mhm.
and also a lot about how bad interest is. So can you give the Islamic opinion of student loans?
So it's a tough question. It's a tough question because schooling is costing a ridiculously large amount of money nowadays, and it didn't used to be this way. So here's my take. My take on this is that personally, I don't think that higher education is an absolute necessity in the community. It's something very, very important, but it's not a necessity. And people view it as a right, but it's actually a privilege, right? And what I don't like people doing is a lot of people, they'll go into school and they'll be like, and they're taking on student loans. They're like, I'm not really sure what I want to do in life. I'm going to take an extra year. I'm going to think about what profession suits me most. They're like, I really don't like this major. I'm going to switch majors, and it delays their graduation for another year. Another year means $40,000, right? That's a lot of money that they don't have, right? And then they're thinking what they want to do, and then when they graduate, they go, I think I want to go into a master's program. I'm really not sure, but I might as well go into it. And then they go into it, and they realize, the master's program is $80,000. But the banks are like, no problem, you can pay us later. We'll just keep taking it from you for the rest of your life. They don't mind because that's their business, right? So, this is a problem in our society. People are taking out loans, and there is interest, and the interest kicks in later, but there's going to be interest, most likely. And I think they should be more cautious. So we need educated people. We need people to do studies. There's no doubt about that. But we should at least try our best to avoid it by looking at lower costing schools. Focus on, if you can't afford it, go to community college first, which is way more cheaper than a 4-year university. And then try and figure out a way to avoid things like this. I'll give you a simple example. I had a friend of mine. He knew that his family could not afford to send him to medical school. So he says, it's always been my dream to become a doctor. I know my family's not going to afford it, and I don't want to pay any interest. So what does he do? And he's a smart kid. So he moves in his junior year of high school, he moves to New Mexico, from California. Moves to New Mexico and attends his senior year of high school in New Mexico. Because he knows that the University of Albuquerque, they have a program, because no one's going to school there really. So they have a program, if you are a resident of that state, your education is free. So he moves, and you have to be resident for at least 1 year, and you have to have attended high school. You can't trick the government, So he moved in his senior year, got an apartment, went to high school, he got his college education for free. Right? So someone who wants to avoid it, they can avoid it. There's another friend of mine. He paid his tuition at UCI, but then he could not afford medical school. It was way too much. So he looks around and researches, and he found a way to go to medical school by avoiding interest completely. So he did a lot of research. So what he has to do is, he has to go into a medical program. He's not allowed to go into a specialization. He has to be in general medicine, right? So he goes into general medicine. He said, my dream was always to be a specialist in whatever, I forgot what it was, cancer or, orthopedics or whatever his specialty was. He said, I left that dream. And I said, I'm going to go into general medicine because there's a grant from the government. If you go into general medicine and then you commit to serving an underserved population for 5 years, you go through the entire program interest-free. Not free, you have to pay for it, but completely interest-free. And there will never be any interest that kicks in ever. He has to still pay back the money for medical school. So he made that commitment. And he said, if you do that 5 years worth of work, you will pay off your entire education. So when I tell this to most people, they go, that's so difficult. Or they'll say, I always wanted to be a specialist in, what is the children's doctor called? I always wanted to do pediatrics, right? So the thing is, people are not willing to give up their wants. And they think that their wants are needs. And that's the biggest problem today. People think that they need the latest smartphone, and they need the giant screen, and they need the super camera. They don't need it, they want it. And if they can afford it, great, but you don't get into interest just because of a want. And that's a big problem that we have. So my opinion is that college education is very important, but it's not a necessity. And as much as possible, we should avoid interest at all. Now, if you've already taken the loan, what do? You make it your number one priority in life to pay off that loan. So you stick with the flip phones. You're not going to text anyone, no text, no internet plan. I'm going to go to Starbucks. I'm going to use internet there instead of in my home. Disconnect the cable, no TV. I'm going to save up all that money so I can immediately pay off this loan and get out of this loan as soon as possible. And then I can continue my life like a normal person who's not in debt. That's my advice to people who are already stuck in that and they cannot get out of it. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Yes. Okay, yeah, so what's the big deal on interest? So the thing is, interest basically is this. When you loan someone money, you expect additional money to be paid back to you. So what Islam says is that making money off of loaning money or making money off of money is an unjust and oppressive way of making money. So if you buy an item and then you sell the item to someone else, this is considered to be a just way. But when you go and you have money and you try and use that to make more other money from the other person, there's a type of exploitation that's involved. And the real reason, it's not just because rich versus poor. That's not the reason. The reason is because when you buy the item, you take on a risk. You may be able to sell the item for more, but you may get stuck and have to sell the item for less. Or you may have to just get the item out for cost. So you've taken on some type of risk. And that's a legitimate risk, and it's a risk that benefits the society because you're looking at the product, you're going to cause trade, it's going to help the entire community, the economy. When you have money and you don't want to take any risk except the risk of default, that risk does not help the economy. It actually hurts the economy. It fuels inflation more, and usually, not always, usually it ends up serving the people who have a lot more money. And the people who are in need, they're the ones who are taking on the loan, and they're the ones who are taking on the greatest risk, while the people with the money are not taking on any real risk, because they're not really selling anything. So what it does is it harms society. And that's specifically why it's been prohibited on an individual level. Yeah. It's very similar to alcohol, So some people will say, but if I just do it with my friend, it's not a big deal. He doesn't care and I don't care, and we're not going to be bothered or something like that. But that thing on a small level is like alcohol. Alcohol harms society and it harms individuals. Now you can say, well, what if I just go in the corner by myself, I lock myself in a room and I just get drunk, I'm not going to beat anyone up, I'll just punch the walls or something like that if I get really drunk. The thing is, that's prohibited because it's going to harm yourself, right? And small amounts of alcohol, people cannot control themselves, right? And someone will end up crossing the line. So in order to make sure to shut the door to this evil, Islam said don't even drink one sip. Same thing with interest. Even on a small individual level, don't even take 1 cent on top of a loan in order to prevent it from happening. And this is what happens in the world. Yeah.
Okay, two questions that are related to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What if someone intentionally gets like a credit card? Well, I had debt after I became a Muslim and I have to pay it, right?
Mm.
But what if I take a credit card after I became a Muslim knowing that it's wrong? What are the consequences of that? And what are the consequences of like drinking a little bit of alcohol? What is the...
So taking a credit card, meaning taking on credit card debt, or just taking a credit card?
No, the debt.
Okay.
So, by the way, is it because I got rid of all my credit cards?
Yeah.
But now I know that my credit is not moving that much,
No, so here's the thing. You can have a credit card
but you can, okay.
as long as you never ever take on any interest, right? And what if and some people have difficulties. They may not be good at paying their bills and they forget and all of that stuff. If that's the case, you should use your credit card like a debit card. So what you do is you put money in advance in the month how much you're going to spend, so you have credit. And then when you spend it, it's all being paid from your credit, so you can never miss the bill. That's the easiest way, and it's like it's like using it like a debit card, but it's a credit card, so you can build your credit still.
So I can take one, 'cause I got rid of all of that.
Yeah, no, you can have the credit card. That's not the problem. So the masjid has a credit card. so having the credit card is not the problem, as long as you're not going to get involved in any interest whatsoever. And if you're one of those people who well, you miss a deadline here and there, you prepay the credit card. So you end up getting credit. And they don't want you to do that, but who cares? You do it anyways, right? So, huh? Or set up auto pay, right? So either auto pay or you prepay the credit card. One of the two, just to avoid that you never have this issue, right? The second question was about alcohol. If you drink a little bit, it's considered to be a sin. It,
What are the consequences? I read somewhere that it was like your prayer is not accepted.
for 40 days. So basically, there's a hadith that if you consume something that's unlawful, it's prohibited for you. It says your prayer is not going to be accepted for 40 days, right? Does that mean that you shouldn't pray anymore? No, you keep praying, but it means the value of your prayer is decreased because you've committed a very major sin. So we should always avoid anything that's prohibited for us in Islam. We should never consume it because there are effects. There are spiritual effects, there are physical effects, and there's sinful effects. Inshallah. Yes.
Kind of tying back into the alcohol use, I think like with this generation, people are more prone to like use marijuana. Is it considered to be equal?
Yeah.
Or,
So,
I've heard both were like, oh no, alcohol like alters your brain and
yeah.
people do,
Yeah. So that's a good question, especially among youth nowadays. And what's happening is in the political liberal atmosphere, like the Democrats and the far left people, they're constantly promoting marijuana all the time. And there's a lot of promotion, and sometimes they talk about, they do a comparison between alcohol and marijuana on a societal level. They say we should decriminalize marijuana, which already happened in California. Many other states, they're pushing for that all the time. So when they're pushing for that, some of them, they smoke weed themselves, right? So they promote it. Others, they're looking and they're saying, look, from a legal perspective, you are punishing people who are smoking marijuana, and that's less harmful to society than people who are drinking alcohol, okay? From a political or from a societal perspective, they're right, is that alcohol is more harmful than marijuana. Marijuana is less addictive than alcohol. It has less, family effects and how it's going to harm people and all that. It's from the societal perspective, there's not so many crimes that are going to be committed when people are doing marijuana. Muslim scholars recognize this in the past. So 1,000 years ago, they were used to write books, and they would compare hashish. Hashish is a type of drug which is somewhat similar to marijuana. It's probably a lot worse than marijuana. But they looked and they said, okay, so hashish and, you guys have heard of hash, right? Like a hash pipe, things like that. So hashish is that type of drug. So they compared hashish with alcohol. And they said, is hashish, first of all, is it haram just like alcohol? Is it prohibited? And they said, yes, absolutely, because it's mind altering. It's intoxication. however you want to define intoxication. A lot of liberals will say, oh, but no, but intoxication means toxic, and the word toxic doesn't exist in marijuana. All these arguments. Intoxication, according to Islam, means you cannot think straight the way you would normally do when you're on this substance. That's intoxication. So when it comes to being intoxicated, drugs like marijuana have a similar type of intoxication, which causes them both to be prohibited in Islam. Now the argument that's being made, is one worse than the other on a societal level? Yes. On a societal level, alcohol is much worse, which is why people are pushing for decriminalization and legalization of marijuana and all that. But what they don't do is they don't push for the prohibition of alcohol either. So they want both, right? They just want, and there's some racism built in and all of that. So what's happening is this influences a lot of Muslims, and they start thinking, oh, marijuana is not so bad and this and that. But then from the mind-altering aspects, in terms of the long-term benefits, alcohol is going to mess you up in your liver and how other diseases, but marijuana is going to mess up your mind on a long-term level too. So they're not concerned so much on the individual level. They're concerned on the societal level. On the societal level, they're right. On the individual level, I think they're mistaken. Right? There's a lot of harmful effects to marijuana. So yes, it's prohibited, one, because it intoxicates you, and it's prohibited, number two, because it has harmful effects in the long run. And all the people who are coming out with this fake research to show that, oh, it's not bad, and look, I smoke one a day and I'm fine. The guy has memory problems, the guy has all sorts of things, and he puts a YouTube video trying to convince people, no, I'm fine. And and all sorts of things. Some Muslims go, oh, it helps me concentrate in my salah, in my prayer. Yeah, it's a fake concentration, it'll get me, I feel like I'm in Jannah. MashaAllah, take LSD, you feel like you're in hell, So this is, all of this stuff is, no, it's not good. Alhamdulillah, so it should be prohibited. Yes.
What about tobacco? Because I have a lot of Muslim friends who smoke tobacco and put that. Isn't that harmful?
So there's two aspects. So now there's the intoxication, which is completely prohibited. And then there's something which is going to harm your body, right? So a lot of things harm our body. Sugar harms our body, right? So the thing is, when the amount of harm to the body becomes quite high, right? There's like a threshold, you can say. Once it becomes quite high, higher than normal, and you're really putting yourself in risk, then it should be prohibited in Islam. Not because of intoxication, but because it's harming your body. So when cigarettes were proven to be harmful to the body, they should have been prohibited, because they're very clearly harmful. In the past, Muslim scholars, 100 years ago, they knew about cigarettes, and they used to say cigarettes are disliked, they're makruh. The reason why they said that was because from their perspective, they said it just smells really bad, right? So it should be disliked, people should not smoke, but they didn't know the health effects of tobacco at the time and all the other chemicals, nicotine and everything, right? Now that we know the health effects that are there, it should definitely be prohibited. And vaping is a new phenomenon, which is supposed to be better or something like that. But even a lot of harmful effects are coming out of vaping. So people should be very careful about vaping, and we're going to see what the research shows, how harmful it really is in 10 years or in 20 years. Right? So we should be careful about things which really don't have much benefit for you, right? But they have a lot of potential harm for you. So cigarettes, generally, most scholars say nowadays, now that the research is clear cut, it should be prohibited as well, and no Muslim should be smoking. It's like drinking ammonia every day. Not good for you. You wouldn't want to do that.
So who are the smoking, the Muslim people are smoking, even though knowing all this hazardous stuff, still smoking, so that means they are.
They're going to be held responsible, yeah. And they need to, Ramadan is the perfect time to quit. You can't smoke in the daytime anyways. So you have to, you give up, 14 hours a day, you might as well give up the other times anyways. Yeah. But it's an addiction, so people should really get into a rehab program and try and get out of it. Yeah. Yes.
As far as eating halal, I've heard kind of difference in opinions.
Yeah.
Is American meat considered to be halal because it's
Right.
for the book?
Right. Right. So there is a difference of opinion among the scholars. Right. So the thing is, you have to respect that difference. So I'll just summarize what the difference is. So when it comes to just basically meat in America from a normal store, there's a few questions that is asked. Number one, was it slaughtered by people of the book, meaning Jews and Christians? All right. And then question number two is, did the animal die before being slaughtered? Right. And then there's one more issue, but I'm not going to get into it. So these are the main two issues, right? So it's agreed that as long as a Muslim, Jew, or Christian slaughters the meat, you're okay. You can eat it. And as long as the animal was alive, and when you slaughtered it, the blood started draining out, you can eat it. So if you go to a farm and your Christian friend is there, he's Catholic, Christian, whatever it is, and say, look, you got a goat there, why don't you slaughter this goat for me? I'm going to watch you. And you watch him, he slaughters the goat, and the goat dies, and he cuts it up. It's halal. You can eat it. There's no problem with that. So in fact, there was a restaurant down the street. It was like a Mexican restaurant. And there was one guy in there, it's shut down now, but there was one guy in there, and I used to go and get like fish tacos from him. So he said, you want some goat? I said, why? He says, once a week I go and I slaughter the goat myself. I do it myself. I cut it up and I make goat, tacos. And I said, interesting. I said, are you Christian? He said, I'm Catholic. I said, do you go to church? He said, yes, I go to church. I said, you slaughter it yourself? He said, yes. I said, with a knife? Yes. I said, oh, okay. Give me the goat taco. So that's okay because he's a Christian. He's slaughtering it. The blood is, coming out. He's good to go. So I asked him, I said, just do me a favor. When you slaughter the animal, just say, in the name of God, before you slaughter. Are you okay with that? He says, yeah, I'll do it, no problem. So he did it. That's it. So just don't say Jesus, just say in the name of God. No, en el nombre de Dios. Good. We're good to go. I had no issue eating that meat, right? Now the problem is, the meat you find in the store, there's two problems. Problem number one, how do you know a Jew or Christian slaughtered the meat? When you have these giant meat factories, and someone comes for a job opening, right? Do they ask you, are you a Jew or Christian? It's against the law. It's against the law. And how many people are not Jews or Christians in America? Like people say, oh, well, so some scholars say, no, but America's a Christian country. I don't agree. There's a lot of non-Christians, especially among the younger generation. A lot of non-Christians, right? So you can't really know for sure whether your meat is coming from a Christian source. Now, if you eat kosher, right, when you get hired by a kosher slaughtering factory, they ask you, you have to be a Jew. They don't accept you if you're a Jew because they say this is a religious requirement that we have. So they're allowed to, by the government, ask for a religion. So when you're eating kosher, the Jew part is clear. They won't even hire a Christian. They'll only hire a Jew, right, who's cutting the meat. When you go to a normal McDonald's, whatever farm that McDonald's is getting their meat from, they're not going to check if you're a Jew or Christian, and they don't care. And there's a very high probability that someone has slaughtered your meat and they were not a Jew or Christian. Right? So for me, that's where I say, you know what, there's a problem there. And the second problem is, it's been shown that, some of the animals, they end up dying before they get slaughtered. So if they end up dying before they get slaughtered, then the meat is completely haram, because you're not supposed to eat carrion or dead meat. So what ends up happening is, in these giant slaughterhouses, what they'll do is sometimes they'll line up like 10 cows, and they'll bring like a bolt gun, which shoots a bolt out. So they'll shoot each animal. One guy goes and shoots, and then the next guy goes and starts slaughtering all of them. What will happen is, and this has happened, people have witnessed this, they'll go and they'll shoot, and then one guy, he's slaughtering, and then he goes, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. So he'll go to the bathroom, come back 5 minutes later, and then he'll finish off the rest of them. Those animals died. They died before they were slaughtered. And what happens is, when an animal dies before it's slaughtered, its brain, its heart has shut down, right? So the heart is pumping blood. So once you slaughter it now, the blood is not going to come out of the animal, and the blood stays in the animal. And that's the beauty of Islam, is when we sacrifice the animal, the heart is pumping the blood, and the blood comes out, so the meat becomes cleaner and becomes more pure. So there's the physical aspect in the slaughtering process of halal, and then there's a spiritual aspect. It should be someone who follows at least a prophet who got a book. Jews, Christians, or Muslims, they're all going to be acceptable. So some scholars say, no, there's a high amount of Latinos who work in the slaughtering factory, and they tend to mostly be Catholic or Christian, so we can say the probability is much higher. But for me, that argument just doesn't sit well, because it should be like clear. So if I go to a farm in China or something, and I have a guy who's going to slaughter for me, and I ask him, hey, are you Christian? He says, yeah. I said, okay, no problem. I said, just Bismillah and slaughter it, and we're good to go. But the factories become a problem, because you don't know the religion, number one, and number two, you don't know if the animal died beforehand. Right. So that's my concern. Yes.
Her question, she says that since she's new and she's trying to do her prayers, but at work they don't know that she's just converted. She gets home around almost 5, so she does Doha and Asa together.
She shouldn't be doing that. So this is what I recommend, is that she gets a 10-minute break according to California law. She should just go outside and pray in the parking lot or behind a tree or beside her car somewhere, and that's it. Or go to a break room or ask for a break room or something and say, look, I want to, if she doesn't want to tell her that she's Muslim, she can say, look, I started meditating now. I would like a room where I can sit for 5 minutes and do my spiritual meditations, yeah, and then just go and do that. That's, you have to, by California law, they have to allow that. You get a break anyway, so you're going to skip your coffee, or make your coffee real quick, put on your desk, and then run for the prayer, do your prayer, and then work and drink your coffee instead of coffee break. So
Because then it becomes a habit. So
what becomes a habit?
then she'll become a habit. I know that with the foundations at the beginning are very important. They become a habit and becomes a habit.
Yeah. So the thing is this: if she's very shy and embarrassed right now to be asking, and if she's very, very new, how long has it been? 2 meses? Okay, so it's only 2 months. So my advice would be, if you need a few more months, no hay problema. It's not an issue, right? But after that, you should switch and you should start asking, because you don't want to make this a long-term habit where you're not going to want to change at all, See? Oh, okay. De nada. All right. Crystal.
On top of the prayer, before I converted, there was a Muslim girl that I worked with, and now that after I converted, there's 3 sisters that I work with that are also Muslim. And I would pray, and I would tell them, oh, did you pray on me? They're like, oh no, I do all my prayers at home.
Yeah.
So I asked her, I was like, really? In a respectful way, I'm like, ugh, I'm like, really, I was under the impression that you can't do that, that you have to pray all your prayers within a certain time frame. That's the only time that Allah will, accept that prayer. I don't know, the background of it. So I asked her, and then she says, no, you can do all of them. And this is like, share it. How do you know? And she didn't really give me a response.
These are Protestant Muslims, basically. So they're Protestant Muslims. So if you know about the history of, when Martin Luther broke off from the Catholic Church, he said we should read the scripture, we should read the Bible on our own, and not listen to what the Catholic Church is saying. So these are, you can call them Protestant Muslims, where they're protesting against the scholarship, and they say, no, we don't want to pray all our prayers like you're telling us we have to pray on time. So we're going to go ahead and come up with our own interpretation, and they have no interpretation. There's nothing that they really go to. They say, we don't want to follow that rule, so we're just going to go ahead and pray all 5, and we hope that Allah's going to, accept it from us.
What would be something for us? I think just like out of the goodness of your heart, you want them to do their prayers.
Yeah.
What would be something that
You can tell them. Yeah, just tell them. There's a verse in the Quran, and I can get you the verse. It's there. You can search it. It says, "Inna as-salata kanat 'ala al-mu'minina kitaban mawquta." It says that prayer is an obligation on believers, kitaban mawquta, as at specific prescribed times. right? So it's a very clear verse, so the times are prescribed. There's a hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, where Jibril came and taught him the times of the prayers. This is the time that it starts, this is the time that it ends. So the thing is, most Muslims know that there's a time for prayer. So if there's an end time for prayer, what happens after the end time? If you just, for no good reason, you just delay after the end of time, why would you not be held accountable? If you're not held accountable, what's the point of having an end time? It's like a teacher who says, you know what, this is the time the class starts, and I don't want you to come late, right? And if you come after 8 a.m., you're late. And then you show up at like 9 a.m. and you're like, I don't think the teacher's going to mind. Why wouldn't the teacher mind when they told you if you don't make it by 8, you're late, right? So if you have a valid excuse, then it's different. A valid excuse is not, I was at work, right? And I didn't want to use my 10-minute coffee break to pray. That's not a valid excuse. A valid excuse would be something like, I was unconscious and I couldn't wake up, therefore I wasn't able to pray. That's a valid excuse. But Muslims would pray when they were sick. They were lying down, and you can lie down and pray. So if you're allowed to lie down and pray, how can there be an excuse for delaying the prayer? Right? So when you add up everything together, it just doesn't make sense. You can tell them the verse, you can tell them the hadith, and then tell them, what's the point of having prayer times? It just doesn't make sense. What's the point of having even prayer times if everyone can just pray at the end of the day and there's no issue with it? Right? So like the whole point of having prayer schedules and all that, there's no point. They're all useless. So yes, Heidi.
Along the same lines, especially for the sister who's new, sometimes you see Muslims doing things and you're like, oh, they are Muslim and maybe they know better than I do.
Yeah, that's the common misconception, yeah.
One of the things is like, I know people who do the prayers at the end of the day and people who pray in their cars.
I know family members who do it. They do the same thing. They go home and they pray all 5 at the end. And no matter what I tell them, they just say, they're basically, I'll be straight, they're just being lazy. Okay, that's the reality. But of course, we're not going to tell them you're just being lazy. Everyone is different. Some people you need to tell them hard. Some people you need to tell them like very soft and nicely. But yeah, continue, sir.
The other thing is that they pray in the car.
Praying in the car is also a problem. So a lot of people, they pray in the car. And this is not allowed unless there's a necessity. The necessity means, for example, it's pouring rain, right? And you have nowhere else to pray. You were going to pray next to your car, but it's so much rain, if you were to go out and stand in the rain and it's cold, you'd get sick. You don't want to get yourself sick. So you have an excuse, you can pray in your car sitting. But if you're the real reason why people pray in their car, because they're afraid that someone is going to look at them. Oh no, somebody looked at you while you were praying. Like, what's the big deal? Like, people get really scared. I used to be this way too. I was not always practicing. So I used to be this way and be like, what if somebody looks at me? You're like, what if somebody looks at you? So part of one of our CIU classes that we had in the university, we had a project. This is before you joined. We had a project. You remember the project? You have to pray in public. You have to go and pray in public so you get over this idea that somebody looked at me. And then when you think about it, you're like, what's the big deal? If somebody looks at you, so what? Most people don't even care, right? Unless there's a real danger, right? So if you're driving through Alabama, right, rural Alabama, and there's like a Nazi sign on the wall, and the place where you stop, you're like, I need gas, and there's like a bunch of skinheads, and you're like, okay, this doesn't look very safe. Then you can pray inside the car. But not every place is unsafe. You can go into a store. You can go into a department store. You wouldn't even want to go in the grocery store with those people, right? So if there's a real danger, but people exaggerate the danger. They're in the mall, and in the mall, they'll go in their car and they'll pray. But you were in the mall. You were walking around for 2 hours in the mall. You felt no danger whatsoever. You just go in the changing room and pray right there in the changing room. So yeah. Changing room's a great option, yeah. I got it from a song by Dawood Nabi Ali. He made a children's song, talk about all the funny places that he prayed in his life, and it's a nice song. And he mentions the dressing room, and he mentions the hand car wash where they made wudu, spraying with the car wash water. Sure.
Just talk about the concept of flexibility with Muslims as it relates to prayer, fasting, and eating halal.
Yeah, so when it comes to, like I mentioned for the other sister, when someone's a new Muslim, there's some flexibility where you take some time to adjust your lifestyle around. When it comes to eating halal, it can be very, very difficult. You know, it can be very difficult to find food. It can be difficult to do these things. Even when it comes to prayer or telling people at work, or even telling people that you're Muslim. So when it comes to new Muslims, probably I'd say 3 months to 6 months to even maybe a year, people should, if they find something to be very, very difficult, just do as much as they can. And make the intention that after this period of time, they're going to go 100% on this. So don't make the intention, I'm just going to be like this, and then sometimes people get stuck for like 10 years and they're stuck in there. You don't want to do that, but make the intention, since you're new, you have so much to learn, you have so many things to do, this is a transitionary phase, you have time to make this adjustment. And this is what the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to do. You know, when people became Muslim, they didn't get the entire rule book and they have to do everything immediately. So take some time, and everyone knows, you know, their own capacity. Don't try and take too long, don't try and be too short. So I would say 3 months to 12 months is a good thing. If you exceed 12 months before you're trying to practice like Islam 100% to your capacity, then you may be taking too long. Okay, and that's when it comes to everything, even when it comes to, you know, trying to avoid certain things, going certain places. Just take it slowly in that, but don't take too long either. Okay. Yes.
I'm going to touch a subject, the veil. For me, it's very hard to explain to her. I don't know how to explain to her. Because she said that she has heard that the veil is kosher, and she's heard that it's mandatory. So how can I explain to her about the veil?
Okay, so in a nutshell, the veil is mandatory. So the hijab is mandatory. It's mentioned in the Quran. I can send you an article. We translated the article into Spanish, actually. So who knows Sister Sumaya? Al-Gohari. Okay, just ask Sumaya to send. She translated it. She translated the article. She can send you the article. It explains how hijab is in the Quran and why it's mandatory and what is the explanation, what does the verse mean and everything. So that's that part. And then so that should be clear. There's no difference of opinion on this. Like this one is clear cut. So the only people who differ are the Protestant Muslims. I just coined this new term. I'm going to keep using this. All right? Or the Protestant Muslims who kind of made their own, you know, school of thought, I guess. Yeah, but it can take some time, right? So sometimes even if you accept, okay, I'm going to start wearing this. Like I said, you know, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. Just say, you know, I have the intention, I need to focus on everything else, I'm going to build my prayer, I'm going to see what fasting is, I'm going to start attending more classes, and after that time, I'm going to be ready to make that jump. It's going to be a little bit challenging, it's going to be a little bit difficult, so give yourself some time, but then once you make that jump, just try and be committed, be firm, surround yourself around people who are supportive of you. That's very important. Okay? Yeah.
I work in a place where the break room is very small, it's just a table and a chair. And then it's a plaza. So I don't want to pray outside because I don't want, you know, all in the air, right behind, all in the air. I work in the middle of everybody. So I pray in the car. It's not like.
How about this? Can you walk behind the building?
No, everything's like open. It's like it's a plaza.
Can you walk to another building down the street? I'll tell you what I used to do, okay? When I used to work in a company, a different company, I used to walk either to another building that doesn't have too many people around at the time, and I used to pray over there so no one's going to be like looking at me. And then what happened was sometimes that building next door, or two buildings down, it turned out that, you know, people started coming at that time. So what I would do, I'd just jump in my car and I would just drive down the street to a parking lot that was kind of open, and I would just pray right there, and I would just drive right back, and I did the entire thing in my less than 10-minute break, and I managed to still get my coffee and make it back to my desk in time. Right? So it's doable. But what you do is you make your wudu during your bathroom break, which doesn't count as your 10-minute break, right? So you got your wudu at like 12:30. That's done with your bathroom break. You got your wudu, and then 1 o'clock, that's my 10-minute break. I'm gonna go jump in the car, drive down the street, or during your lunch break, you have 30 minutes or 1 hour or whatever you have for lunch break. You do it during your lunch break. Inshallah. Chris.
Adding on to the prayer, you know, one of the things like I do is that, well, I work in a library, so I pray behind books. But even then, sometimes I don't like fully pray behind the books because a lot of times when I've had other students see me praying, it's a form of dawah. They come up to me and ask me, what is the meaning? I've never seen something do that before, and then sometimes I explain to them. So I know sometimes as Muslims, especially as new Muslims, sometimes because it is a sudden change for us to have to do this, you get a little embarrassed at first. But eventually we should probably look at this as a form of dawah, you know, a way to educate the community and letting them know that I'm putting time for here. So it opens up a lot of questions and a lot of opportunity for someone else to learn about Islam and why we do it.
Yep, that's a good point. And yeah, sometimes you're concerned that someone will walk up to you and be like, start talking to you. You know, you can't respond back to them. So what I've done before is when I am in a place where I know that, you know, there's a probability that someone might just come up to me, I just write on a piece of paper, say like, I'm fine, I'm just praying. And I put it next to me so they can come and see. Because one came to me like, are you okay, man? Are you okay? And I'm just like, so.
I mean, my concern is that people see me because I'm not shy about it, but it's most like a woman praying in front of, you know, men, you know, it's like, we do bend down, you know, it's like, we have to be a little bit more modest about it, you know? We can't just be praying in front of the men like that, you know? It's like, sometimes, especially because we're, you know, we pray, you know, Muslim culture, the Mexican culture, the men, I know them how they are.
Mm-hmm. Right. Which is why we have separation in the masjid, right? But women still pray in the masjid, right? So why not just put the car behind you? Put your back to your car, so no one can see behind you. The seeing in front of you is not the issue, because even if you go to the masjid, the men can turn around and they see you, but they don't see your back while you're praying and everything like that, right? That's why women are in the back. You have your car, you find the direction of prayer, you put your back to the car. It's problem solved. So what's the difficulty?
I open up both doors, my back door and the driver's door, and I pray.
That's a good idea too. Yeah, so you can open the door. Yeah. I mean, so the thing is, as they say, if there's a will, there's a way, right? So you can always try different things. If you really want a lot more privacy, just keep a shoji screen in your trunk, you know, which is like, you know, one of those foldable screens or some of that. Or you could have one of our CIU banners. You know, we have these rollable banners. We can give you one of those. They roll like this small. You keep it in your trunk. You roll it up, and you just put two of them like on the side of you. You have 100% privacy. You know, I mean, there's always a way to do it. You know. Right. No, I know it's challenging. No. I agree with you, and it's more difficult for women. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, it's more difficult for women. But you know, as long as there's safety, you should just try your best to do it. That's what I would say, inshallah.
So, I just wanted to ask you, you have the articles published in your blog?
No, so the Spanish ones, we did not publish them.
I know you don't, but are you going to upload them?
One day, inshallah, yes. The goal is that they're sitting there in a folder. We're redoing our CIU website. Once we do the new version, we're going to actually put up all the Spanish articles on the website. So hopefully within 1 to 2 months, it'll be up, inshallah. And Heidi helped translate as well. Yes, that's right. Alhamdulillah. Yes. Yeah, actually, you have them too, right? Yeah. You can ask Heidi. She's here. So she can send you that article about the hijab, inshallah.
So the idea of halal food, is that only applying to meat? So if you're a vegan or vegetarian, you're safe? Or is that like with every kind of?
So, no, there's a few other things. Mostly it applies to, so there's alcohol. There's alcohol, and there's animal-based products. If you're vegan, vegetarian, you're pretty much okay, because stuff like gelatin or other, you know, things that are derived from animal products, they're probably not going to make it into your diet. So you're pretty much good to go. on vegan, vegetarian. The only case would be very rare if you go to like a Hindu temple where they dedicated their fruits and vegetables to the gods. You should not eat those ones that have been dedicated. Other than that, you're good, inshallah. So.
Experience about that. I buy the stuff from the, like a pickle and stuff,
Mm.
from the Hindu store.
Mm.
But, I mean, it's okay to buy it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing wrong with
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But on the bottle itself, it says this product are dedicated to their, so I didn't.
Oh, they were on the bottle is written they're dedicated to.
dedicated to their God. So
Ah.
when I noticed that, I throw away my bottle.
Ah, okay. Yeah, if that's the case, it's probably better not to buy those pickles. But that's tough. Where they dedicated the whole factory of pickles to the god. Okay, I guess. Alhamdulillah. All right. There's another question. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, back to prayer.
Yeah.
So I'm like in the same boat. I'm not as comfortable praying out in public yet, and a lot of people don't know that I have converted.
Mhm.
Not that I'm like hiding it. It's just not a topic at work. So I have a salon studio,
Mm.
and it's only 100 square feet. It's like a huge building with a lot of studios in it.
Mm.
So I'm trying to think where I can do it in private for
Mm.
now. If I was like to set out clients in the hallway while they're, their hair's processing and whatnot, I don't think they would mind that. If I close my curtains in the studio, is it okay to pray in there? But if there's like hair on the floor, from cutting hair, coloring hair.
There's no issue. No issue. And you could just put a sheet on top. Yeah. There's no issue. Yeah. Yeah. So hair, if you're praying on hair is clean technically. If there's some shampoo or some of that, or color or some of that, there's no issue at all. Yeah. And just for your own self, you could just put a little sheet on top, or even a piece of paper, or newspaper even, whatever it is, and yeah, you could pray right there. Yeah, no issue.
Another thing, if possible, is during Ramadan, students come to me and ask me if they can pray, like even in my office. And this Ramadan, I talked to my boss, and we're going to provide a classroom for our Muslim students to pray there.
MashaAllah.
But one of the recommendations is like if you have somebody in class and if someone has an office, if they can let them borrow the office for doing lectures.
In the classrooms, yeah, or someone else has an office. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you can always ask. People are very accommodating, alhamdulillah. Yeah, every job that I had, they always accommodated. They said, you can have this room, and then when they said, oh, this room now we have to put something in there, so we'll give you a different room. Don't worry. Most places are accommodating, and the places that are not, you have two options. Either one is you go somewhere else and you do it privately, or you call care and you file a lawsuit against them and you fight it out because according to the law they have to accommodate your prayers, right? So you can either fight it out to help everyone else in the future, or if you don't want to deal with the hassle, just go do it privately. No one's going to stop you, inshallah. If they do, you let me know, inshallah. We'll help take care of them, inshallah.
That I was not working. I mean, I didn't come to CIU or Umar Farooq at that time.
Mm.
In 2009, I'm talking about.
Mm.
So these two ladies, they were commenting on my fasting and my prayers and everything.
Mm.
So I used to pray in the warehouse there, and I was not even doing the hijab at that time.
Mm.
So they were. I mean, I didn't say anything or complain anything, but my friends, they.
It sounds like a super drum beat.
This one's silent.
Do you have two phones?
Oh, my brother.
You have two phones. Hopefully there's no debts involved.
So they started commenting, and then my coworkers, they were listening and said, how do you tolerate all this?
Mm.
So I complained to my controller, and she wouldn't pay attention.
Mm.
So few times I have to complain, and whenever I go talk to her, she will just she will point out my weaknesses and stuff.
Mm.
Instead of talking about that issue, she will just ignore totally.
Mm.
Finally, I was tired and I complained to the vice president.
Mm.
So when I do that, they fired those two ladies. They were working for them
Oh.
for 10 years and 15 years.
Very good.
But after that, the worst thing started after that. My controller, she was after me because I was the reason because they had to let go of those two ladies. So she hired somebody to just spy on me. Go to the restroom, she will follow me. Wherever I go, she follow me. Made my life miserable. It was so stressful that they forced me to quit.
So this is what you should do in the next. If that ever happens, what you do is every single time an incident happens, you write down the details and the date of the incident. When you talk to your manager, you write down exactly what you said and the response and the date. And that becomes all evidence. When you file a lawsuit against them, it's very easy to take care of. Because even though the vice president fired the other two people who were giving you a problem for prayer, if you had the detailed documents and everything about I met and this is the response and this is how it was handled, it was not handled, the vice president would have fired the controller as well, easily. But you gotta document. This is what CARE told me when I spoke to the lawyers. They said if you don't document, it becomes very difficult because he said, she said, you remember, you forgot. When you got everything documented and you make a whole file, you have a very strong case and it's very easy to deal with these situations. So don't just let it go. Write down everything with the date, with the time, and all the details of the incident. And you're much more protected that way. Inshallah ta'ala. Yes.
So I'm an artist and I work in a ceramic studio, and literally every surface is covered in clay, mud, dirt, dust, everything.
You can make tayammum then.
I remember to bring like something to pray on, but some days I haven't, and so I just like put a paper down where my face would be. Is it better to not pray if the area is just like filthy, or
No. So here's the thing. There's filthy in Islam means anything that's impure. Impure is blood, urine, pus, help me Jamal, feces, and vomit. Okay? That's pretty much it. Sweat, even though it's gross, mucus even from your nose, clay, straw, sand, dirt, that's all considered to be pure from an Islamic perspective. So there's absolutely no issue with you praying on all those things. As long as there's no blood, pus, vomit, what did I say again? Urine and feces. That's it. That's it. And you're fine. Yeah, so yeah, definitely. There's no issue. You don't even need to put anything on the floor. There's not even a need. If you want to, because you don't want pieces of clay, sticking to your forehead or something like that, then it's fine. Otherwise, it's perfectly fine to pray on clay. It's like praying on the ground. Yeah. Inshallah. Anything else? Some sign language going on here. Oh, what time is it? Ooh, okay. So, mashallah. Alhamdulillah, yes. Okay, let's take the last question, inshallah.
I work at a bank. I was just wondering, because my husband recently told me that it's a haram job because we do charge interest for certain things. What is your perspective on places of employment? It's not me that's charging, it's the place of business.
Right. So here's the thing. So if you work in a bank, my opinion is that if you are involved in the loan process, that getting people into an interest-based contract, then you should not be in that position. If you are working in IT, if you're a janitor, if you're a teller, if you're in any other field that has nothing to do with the actual interest part of the contracts, you're not encouraging people, you're not signing it, you're not processing that, that's not your main thing, and money just goes in and out and stuff like that, then you're fine. So are you a teller?
Yeah.
Then you're fine. Inshallah. If you get promoted, don't get promoted to the loan officer.
Okay.
Yeah, get promoted to a manager, someone who just oversees the general thing, or get promoted somewhere else, right? But not so much in the field where the interest part is involved. Because here's the thing, it's allowed for Muslims to put their money in a bank. So Muslims are coming and they're actually going to the teller. So how can it be that a Muslim can walk up to a teller and it's halal for the Muslim to go and give money to a teller, but the teller is haram for them to process the thing? It wouldn't make sense. So it's allowed. But the Muslim shouldn't be going to the loan officer to get the interest-based thing, right? And that's why they shouldn't be a loan officer at the same time. Yeah, Frank.
So you can't provide interest to other people that are non-Muslims?
No. That's the Jews, basically. They're allowed to charge interest to non-Jews, but not to Jews traditionally, right? But no, Muslims are not allowed to charge interest to Muslims, and they're not allowed to charge it to non-Muslims either, to nobody. Because consider...
I'm just kind of, I would probably, what I would do is set up like a little
Yeah,
of a mortgage.
yeah, you should avoid that field if possible, as much as possible. Is that your field?
No, I was planning to go back.
Oh, yeah. No, avoid that field. Yeah, avoid that field. Yeah. Inshallah. Okay. All right. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik nastaghfirukallah wa natubu ilayk. Jazakumullah khairan. It's always a pleasure. Oh, Jamal has some announcements.
Appreciate it. Oh, nice. It's a lot better than our one NPR. Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody hanging out with us. I know we went a little bit over, but that's great because we want to exhaust and take as much as we can from Shaykh Mustafa. But we appreciate it. Thank you so much. A few announcements. Remember our Ramadan workshop, May 13th, 1:30 till 3:30 p.m. It's Sunday. All right, so it's coming up. It's going to be here at the extension, right? So please make sure you guys take time and join us. It'll be again here at the extension with Shaykh Mustafa and Shaykh Muhammad Faqih. May 13th, right? I got it correct. Let me just double check. Yeah. May 13th, yeah. So next Sunday, right? Yeah, next Sunday. So here, 1:30 till 3:30 p.m. So if you have any questions, that's why today was a good opportunity to ask those questions. It's opened up to the whole community, so we expect and anticipate more people coming. But just make sure you guys come on time. We can pray there, 1:15, and just hurry over here and start. And we'll go ahead and get started here. Number 2, there's a very big Girl Scouts event going on at the mosque for those of you that stop by there. They encourage us all to come back and kind of, so many non-Muslims are there, a good number. And if you want to join in the food and the festivities and the activities, it'll be really nice. They're going till about 4 p.m. so we can still catch the tail end of that event if anybody wants to go. Third and finally, for how many is this the first time coming here to Cal Islamic? Catherine, first time, right? Okay, everybody, okay. So I just want to, I think most of you are familiar with it, but we do have a university system here called California Islamic University, or CIU. This is the extension property of our mosque, which is down the road. So it's part of IIOC, but we offer many different classes. How many of you are registered already for CIU? I think many of you are. Okay, perfect. So we want to make sure that you guys are stay tuned. We're just about finishing the quarter now. We're taking a break for Ramadan, right, Shaykh Mustafa? And we're going to continue right after Ramadan with a new set of classes. We teach different classes here at a basic level. So if for some reason, or if you have just recently accepted Islam, literally you can walk into the classroom and we start from the beginning. That's how we made our motto here, basically, for everyone to get good Islamic education from the ground up. Then we can get to advanced courses as well. Courses like learning about the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, learning about all the prophets, peace be upon him, hadiths or statements of the Prophet Muhammad, and different public speaking and different classes that we offer, usually about 4 to 5 a quarter, and we have about 20 or over 20 different courses that we offer here. So for more information, you guys can go to calislamic.com. Make sure you sign into and sign up for the newsletter so you'll get updates. You can take it live, meaning here in person. You can do it online. So it's very flexible because of the work schedule that many of us have. So you can be flexible with that. So you can be literally, what I do is, and Shaykh Mustafa knows, I have a commute to get to here from LA and back. I'll just watch my CIU weekly classes online as I'm driving, right? And then take my quiz later on. I watch them, yeah, of course. I listen to him. So no, actually, I watch and listen. I shouldn't be watching you copy. Yeah, I don't try to take my exams as I'm driving either. So, but you know, it's very flexible. So we try to make it very flexible for all the students. So I encourage you, if you haven't as of yet taken your courses, start to take it after Ramadan. The courses should be up with late Ramadan, or the new courses for the next semester, next quarter. So they'll be up. So just calislamic.com, and we update you on that. I think we probably still have a lot of food left over in the cafe. Then, perfect. So please, if everyone wants to take a plate, and we'll take it home, and that'll be great, inshallah.
I want to interrupt and get in between, so I missed a lot of students, but we have a little tiny thing for you guys. It is Teachers Appreciation Week,
Oh, mashallah.
Sarola thought of it. Everyone knows the Sarola. Very thoughtful. May Allah reward her and her family tremendously.
Ameen.
So she said, our teachers are always forgotten. So this is something small for Ustad Jamal. And
Oh,
this is for you.
That is really kind.
And
I'm blushing under my beard.
And then
I really appreciate it.
a bag. It's a meal bag with lots of thoughtful little tiny things inside.
Oh, thank you, Sister
MashaAllah.
Halima. May Allah bless you.
And so Alhamdulillah, may Allah reward her. There's the more things in the cafeteria for the other shoe. So inshallah.
This is amazing. Wow, that really made my day, and I'm sure it made your day. Yeah, no, definitely, yes. Yes. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
It's a hard work, but it is really like the statement also says, it goes eternally. But it goes until
That's really nice.
teaching is something completely different than other jobs. It goes really beyond this world. So it's never wasted. Not a single word is wasted. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And that's, by the way, that's Shaykh Mustafa Umar's wife, Sister Halima, who's joining us as well. Really appreciate it. And actually, Shaykh Mustafa is my teacher, so I wish I had something to give you. I'm being very honest. I just literally tag along with him, and I've learned so much over the years. And I recommend that. Try to really tag along with scholarship and learn from classes and gatherings as much as possible. And I really respect this man because he dedicates a lot, family time, social time, etc., to bring us a platform where we can learn. Something like Cal Islamic University, I'm being very honest, it's very hard to find. And this is one of the reasons why Allah, by His mercy, we have something like this. And it's really for those that are seeking knowledge, especially in the English language, it's so important for us. So I really want to thank you being my teacher. May Allah bless you and reward you and keep you smiling, inshallah. All right. Thank you so much.
I just want to thank you for so much about the one information. You explained it very nicely. So Alhamdulillah, it was very useful.
Cool. Thank you so much. All right, so we'll make our way. We do have to put away the tables and chairs if it's okay. If anybody can help, that'd be great. We have to put the table, unless you have a setup or anything?
You can leave it, actually.
Leave it?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
We're going to use it eventually.
Okay, so actually we can leave it. That's perfect. Let's just make sure we clean up the cafe. Let's take some food home. And if you guys have time, we can go back to IIOC and join that program there. They finish about 4 o'clock. But if not, no worries. We'll see everybody back Friday with Coffee with the Shaykh, 6:30 p.m. Assalamu alaikum.